dress up as anime characters from Japanese animated programs, what's called costume play or cosplay, as they take you on the tour. So you'll do this event. So you can have a look at that. And these are a couple of programs for a new project that I'm involved in called Anime Masterpieces. And the idea is to screen and discuss perhaps the more sophisticated animated features coming out of Japan. And these are we do these presentations at universities, museums, in fact, most recently at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, and up at Hobart and William Smith colleges in upstate New York. So these are collected essays by contributors to this program. And again, this is an attempt to introduce Americans, particularly older Americans who might not be familiar with animation from Japan, to certain feature films that have been produced in Japan. The other thing I'm going to display, since the translator of Japan America, this is the book in English, in the paperback edition in English, and this is the book in Japanese. I was very fortunate and honored to have a publisher in Japan, Kodansha, Random House Kodansha, decide to publish the book in Japanese. Honored and a little frightened because I had to rush through the galleys to make sure I didn't say anything offensive. She's going to actually fly in Japan. And the Japanese edition is published by Yasu Nagata, who is right here. Great job translating the book. So is it okay to pass this around? Yeah, so if you want to have a look, it's a very different cover, which was done by a Japanese manga artist, I think he's 23 or 24 years old, named Take. He goes by one name, Take. And he's a manga or Japanese graphic novel artist, and he designed the cover of the Japanese edition of the book. So I say a couple quick things about the book itself. It's called Japan America, How Japanese Pop Culture Has Invaded the U.S. So first of all, I do not personally believe Japanese pop culture has invaded the United States of America. And in fact, when the book was published in Japanese, out of sensitivity to certain Japanese connotations, perceptions of the word invasion, invaded, we changed the subtitle of the book to Japanese Pop Culture Revolution, basically. But I want to mention that and I'm grateful to my publisher, but my publisher wanted the reference to the British invasion to exist in the title for readers of a certain generation who might think fondly of the Beatles and so on coming over to the United States, to feel the same way about Japanese popular culture, which is why the subtitle was chosen in English. But the title itself actually has some autobiographical resonance. My mother is Japanese. She was born in Tokyo, raised in Morioka, which is, some of you know, in Tohoku, northern Japan. And my father is, in fact, American of Scottish and German ancestry. So the title involves a kind of unification of these two cultures, and in particular, of the popular cultures of both countries. When I first started conducting research for this book, I would discover that back in the 1940s and 1950s, there was an influx of American culture into Japan. Of course, these were the post-war years. America was occupying Japan, and a lot of the entertainment on the earliest television sets in Japan and in the form of comic books was from the United States. So many of the sort of pioneers of Japanese popular culture, including the great Osamu Tezuka. Some of you may know that name. His most famous creation is, of course, Astro Boy, or Tetsuwan Atom as he's known in Japan. He will be arriving in American cinemas as early as October of this year in a Hollywood version of Astro Boy, the feature film. One of many projects that Hollywood has purchased from the Japanese anime industry and decided to remake. But when I started conducting research for this book, I would learn that Tezuka himself was a huge fan of Walt Disney and Max Fleischer. Tezuka was also a great student of Japanese cultural traditions and artistic traditions. So it's not as simple as Tezuka wanting to copy Walt Disney or copy Max Fleischer, but he was heavily influenced by these American artists. And the more I began to conduct research into this topic, I would learn, of course, that today at Pixar Animation Studios in California, any artist you speak to treat Hayao Miyazaki, the artist who created My Neighbor Totoro and Spirited Away, which won the Academy Award in 2003, they treat him like a god now. So Miyazaki is seen by American animators as sort of at the apogee of the form. So the book was an attempt to explore that relationship through roughly 60 years of history. And I must say from the outset that I am not an otaku. Some of you may know the term otaku, the Japanese term otaku, which roughly refers to hyper-obsessive, often socially challenged geeks. Okay, someone who's really obsessed with particularly Japanese pop culture and the dolls and the figurines and the animation and the costumes, just obsessed beyond reason. I may be an otaku of other things, but I am not an otaku of anime and manga. I was, however, fascinated to meet and interview both Japanese fans and American fans, Japanese artists, American artists, producers on both sides of the ocean as well. So for me, it was really a thrilling journey into discovering not only, of course, Japan, the country of my mother's birth, but also discovering how interconnected these two cultures are, the American and the Japanese culture. And I think it's, in many ways, it's an alliance that may be the most important strategically to the United States right now. And perhaps as a sign of this, many of you may know that the new president of the United States sent his new Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, to Japan on her first trip outside of the United States. And the very first foreign head of state to visit the Obama White House was Japanese Prime Minister Taro Aso. So certainly the new administration is treating Japan right now as a very, very close friend and ally in the 21st century. So I'm just going to read a few pages from the introduction of the book to get you a sense of the flavor. There's a segment of the book on, let's say, erotic manga and anime, which I had to write because so many people say to me, or so many people said to me, and my editor said to me, you got to address this thing. Like, what's going on with all that sexy stuff? But I'm not going to read from that chapter. It's a Sunday afternoon. A few years ago, I flew from New York to Los Angeles to visit some friends and conduct an interview for a story I was writing. I had recently flown from Tokyo to New York, and Japan was fresh on my mind. At the time, my friends, a husband and wife with a 4-year-old daughter, lived in Los Angeles' Echo Park neighborhood. The area was gentrifying fast. Hipsters and artists were moving in, rents were rising, cafes cropping up on corners and side streets. We walked with their daughter in nearby Elysian Park, where you could see both the Los Angeles skyline and Dodger Stadium. Their house had a Japanese look and feel to it, smooth wood surfaces, subdued hues, straight lines, set back from the street on a hill and obscured from view by a bank of shrubs and a bamboo grove. But the Japanese look and feel was purely coincidental. Urbane and highly educated professionals, my friends were planning to move into a new home shortly. Neither of them has a Japanese background or any other reason to be focused on the culture. Their house, in fact, was a temporary landing pad. One evening I sat in the living room with their daughter, watching the setting sun through the bamboo stalks beyond the window. Suddenly, she began to cry. Her parents were rushing to prepare dinner in the kitchen and dining room behind us. I tried to console her myself, making silly faces and asking her about one of her dolls. I failed. Soon she was wailing, and I felt helpless. Her mother swept gracefully into the room, calm as a mother, voice hushed and soothing. some version of there, there, honey is what